Good afternoon. It's now official. We are beginning the program. Hi, everybody. It is my pleasure to officially welcome you to the 2024 Top 25 Women of Influence Awards Luncheon. My name is Marcia McMillan. I'm from CTV News, and it is my honor to be your host again today. It is not quite an eclipse, but we do have a stellar lineup for you this afternoon. Couldn't resist. We are beyond excited for our Top 25 Women of Influence Luncheon this year. I want to begin by recognizing the sponsors who have invested in bringing this beautiful event together today. This year's sponsors include Iive Financial Group, TD, and Dean Davidson. Each of you have received an event program, which is at your table. There you will find a note from our sponsors, the full bios of all of the performers, speakers, our Lifetime Achievement Award recipient, and each of our Top 25 award recipients. Be prepared to be inspired. I'd like to start this luncheon with a land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the land that we are meeting on today is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse nations, Inuit and Métis. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. I want to begin by thanking our performer, Tony Rosenberg, for kicking off today's program with his beautiful saxophone performance during the reception. I think he deserves a round of our applause. And now we are in for a special performance from one of our Women of Influence Plus very own, Rachel Myers. She's going to be performing the national anthem, so please stand.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command, car ton bras sait porter l'épée, il sait porter la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée des plus brillants exploits. God keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for
Rachel Myers, thank you, Rachel, for that. Beautiful. I would now like to welcome Dr. Billan, CEO and owner of Women of Influence Plus, to welcome you.
Thank you so much, Marcia, for the warm welcome and for hosting us once again this year. I also need to take a moment to thank our volunteers. And if you know me, you know how much I absolutely love our team at Women of Influence Plus. Today could not have been made possible without them. So please join me in thanking the volunteers, Marcia, and the team. Thank you. So we are here to celebrate the 2024 Top 25 Women of Influence and recognize their extraordinary accomplishments. These remarkable women not only are changing the world, but what they're doing is they're redefining it with their courage. The Top 25 come from all walks of life, and their journey often begins with this belief that there's a better tomorrow. They see the world not just for what it is, but for what it could be. They challenge the status quo, break barriers, and most importantly, they pave the way for others. To our top 25 who are joining us today, your influence transcends boundaries, proving that change is possible when we have the courage to pursue it. You remind us that leadership is not just about position titles. It's about the actions we take and the lives that we impact. So thank you. Thank you for your passion, your perseverance, and not just your belief in a better tomorrow, but a better today. Thank you. For today's program, we are so excited to welcome our Lifetime Achievement Award recipient, Lindsay Glasgow, who is the CEO and the president of Plan International Canada. And again, you can read the full bios in your program. We also will be hearing from two young, inspirational women of influence who are changing the game and redefining influence itself. And they're doing it on their own terms. Brooke, actually, who's joining us, she even asked me yesterday if she could study for her exam tomorrow during the reception, which we provided her with a room. And Brooke, on behalf of all of us, good luck on your exam tomorrow. You'll do perfectly well. We will also learn about the outstanding impact that each of our top 25 recipients is having and continues to make. We're going to have a special video presentation later today. We're excited for this program today. We hope that you leave here inspired. We want to thank all of you for joining us this afternoon. Congratulations once again to this year's Top 25, and we look forward to connecting, and we hope that you make connections today as well. Marcia, back to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, we now want to continue the program with a brief message from our official gift sponsor, Dean Davidson. That was briefer than I thought it was going to be. It was amazing. Today, each of our top 25 recipients were gifted the signature meaty gold moonstone necklace and the earrings from Dean Davidson. So beautiful. Thank you for gifting this beautiful set to the recipients. I now want to welcome to the stage Jonathan Lim. Jonathan is the general manager at Dean Davidson Jewelry. He applies his commercial insight and luxury retail acumen to elevate store performance through strategic partnerships, sponsorship negotiations, a commitment to luxury service, and a focus on operational optimization. Jonathan has significantly amplified brand awareness. Please welcome Jonathan to the stage.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Ramit and the Women of Influence, for partnering with us for this event. I'd like to thank Dean for all the years he spent in building his brand and bringing us at the Dean Davidson Company on this journey. So thank you so much, Dean, that everything you have built and given over to us. We are proud to be a partner of this community that helps women achieve and sustain success on their own terms, while recognizing the extraordinary accomplishments of self-identified women and gender-diverse role models. I want to welcome our first speaker of the afternoon, Shana Haji. Shana is a second-year student at TKS with a deep passion for leveraging technology to making a meaningful difference in the world. Shana's main focuses have been understanding the science of aging through the lens of AI, and diving deep into the femtech space to address challenges of the postpartum period, most recently exploring mental health and postpartum depression. Shana has worked in the McMaster's Syn Biolab as a research intern and is currently building an AI system called Bella that is used as a support system for new mothers. Shana is an ambitious, impact-driven innovator and a future leader in women's health. Please join me in welcoming Shana to the stage.
Thank you so much. Is the mic on? Thank you so much for that introduction. So today, as I was walking here, all I could think about was how beautiful the weather has finally been. You know, we're finally in those double digits. And that led me to think about what my summer is going to look like. And it took me back to when I was 9 years old and I went on my most memorable vacation that I have ever had. And we went on this volunteer trip to Sri Lanka. It was the first time that I, up close, got to see problems like poverty, a stretched out medical system, sanitation issues. And as that little 9-year-old, I knew that I wanted to be at the forefront of making change in these spaces. And so that led me to start that journey. Every single year, my family and I would go back to that orphanage. We would work closely with the girls. I was clocking in those volunteer hours. I started a baking business to help these girls and raise the funds, and I started a book club. But what I realized on my last trip was that that just wasn't enough. I wanted to create a lasting impact. Now, from these volunteer experiences in Sri Lanka to standing here today, I realized that my definition of influence has drastically changed over the years. And it's shifted from being one that's bounded by your age, from now being one where all I want to do is create this lasting impact. Hi. My name is Shana Haji, and I'm a 16-year-old innovator. And over the past few months, I have been working on problems in the postpartum space, as well as in the cellular health space, and how they intersect with technology. But more specifically, I've been inspired by the bottom billions and looking at the people in those underserved communities that I've been visiting, and really understanding how I can make a dent in these spaces. Now, my journey started when I was working in the McMaster Synthetic Biology Lab, where we focused on neglected tropical diseases, which are diseases that are really prevalent in rural communities. Now, through the use of synthetic biology, I fell in love with the computational side of things. I loved coding, I loved learning, and I really leveraged that to create and design my own 2 vaccines, focusing on HIV, as well as different bacterial pathogens, from pneumonia to E. coli to salmonella, all really common ones. And now it's led me to my journey on focusing on the femtech space, more specifically postpartum depression. I'm currently creating my own app where I'm leveraging artificial intelligence in order to help and support new moms who are going through their postpartum journey. But you know, the story of this app, Babella, actually started in that same orphanage. Last year when I went, I had the opportunity to sit down with the owner and understand the stories behind how each of the girls at that girls' orphanage were there. And one of the stories in particular was about a girl whose mother suffered through postpartum psychosis, and because of that, she wasn't able to care for her daughter. Now, I am a huge mama's girl, and to know that my mom suffered through the same issue really struck a chord with me. I knew that I wanted to solve this problem. And when I looked at the problem of postpartum depression and maternal mental health decline, I realized that there was a huge stigma associated with it. There was a social stigma, there were economic strains, physical strains, and the sad reality of it all is that 314 million people worldwide go through this issue. That's 80,000 in Canada alone every single year. And these are all women and mothers. And so from there, I looked into what's currently being offered. There's inadequate screening, limited access to specialized care, and this overall stigma and these cultural attitudes that prevent mothers from actually enjoying this beautiful time. And so because of that, I decided to create Babella. Babella is a postpartum care app that's designed to allow mothers to take control of their own postpartum journeys. They're able to interact with the AI components on the app and really understand how they can leverage the community and the support that's offered on the app to streamline their journey and work closely with the medical partners. Now, my vision for Babella is to give every single mother the opportunity to enjoy the early years with their children. And all of this combined has led me to redefine what influence actually means to me. It's not just bounded by the age or the title, but instead, it's about that happiness and the joy that you can give to the people that are interacting with the app, the people that are interacting with the projects I'm building. And every single time I'm working on something, that's always at the back of my head. How can I make an impact, and how can I bring that little joy to the people? So now, what I've realized is that influence is not about what makes it to the headlines, but instead, it's about the lasting impact that I can create on people's life, and watch how I can transform the journeys of different people and bring that community and that support system. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Shanze. Incredible. And what a way to kick off the afternoon. We're going to continue the program now with a brief message from our sponsor, Iive Financial Group.
Success. How does a Canadian company become a key player in North America? How does a Canadian company come to manage over $180 billion in assets and 25,000 advisors in the insurance, savings, and wealth management sectors? Well, Iive Financial Group succeeds by investing, one person at a time. By supporting each of our 4 million clients and thousands of employees who place their trust in us. By committing to a seasoned management team, and by uniting the most reputable leaders in the industry. This is the success we've achieved for over 125 years. Iive Financial Group, invested in you.
All right, I would now like to welcome to the stage Katherine Millum, President and Chief Executive Officer at IA Wealth. Katherine previously spent over 20 years at Manulife in progressively senior leadership roles, including head of wealth sales and head of retail distribution. Her broad and deep experience also includes leadership roles in marketing, client service, and advisor training. Katherine has won numerous awards throughout her incredible career, both for sales performance and outstanding leadership. Two of her proudest achievements were being awarded the Champion of Change Women at Capital Markets and being named one of Canada's most powerful women by the Women's Executive Network. Katherine will be introducing our 2024 Top 25 Lifetime Achievement Award recipient. Please join me in welcoming Katherine to the stage.
Okay, what's the word? Like, don't follow kids, dogs, animals, or Shanze! Wow. Okay. Thank you so much for the warm introduction. I very much appreciate it. And good afternoon, everyone. It is such a pleasure for me to be here today. It's the first time at this event. As you see, I work for Iive Financial Group, and this is our third year sponsoring this fantastic event. The Top 25 Women of Influence Awards, as you know, recognizes the trailblazers and role models who continuously raise the bar and inspire us to be our best every single day. And I got to tell you, I did read all of the bios, all 25 of them, and I was going, you know, how do I describe all these women in a few words? So here's my best shot at it. I know you're innovative, I know you're visionaries, and I certainly know you are fearless. But one thing that struck a real chord with me as well was, and meeting some of you today, is you also bring such a humbleness to what you do every day. You saw our little commercial, but I actually just recently joined Iive Financial Group in September. And I got to tell you, as an organization, we have a deep commitment, and this was really important to me, to both diversity, equity, and inclusion. And of course, that includes the advancement of women. And one of the ways that we would like to honor these women and give back to our community is by being a sponsor, obviously, but also making a donation to the charity Up With Women. Up With Women is a charity that helps homeless and at-risk women build a pathway out of poverty. So through this support, your influence will also reach these women in need. Something else on a side note, you all have these compacts at your tables. I'm trying to open mine as we speak. You know, this is the worst thing. Yeah, thanks, Lindsay, for loving it. Okay, so I'm going to have to fake it and pretend it's open. But you know, I have a superpower. I can put lipstick on without a mirror, okay? So this, you could say this was useless to me, but I also have a secret that in the morning I do these affirmations in the bathroom mirror. And you know what? This is going to inspire me at work, right? To open this thing, and if I got a tough meeting, right, Elaine? You know, if I got to go to a tough meeting, I'm gonna pump myself up with this mirror. It's awesome. Okay, but Lindsay, this is all about you now. Are you ready? Yeah. And I had the pleasure of meeting Lindsay for the first time today. I actually reached out to her on LinkedIn, and she did not respond. I got ghosted. But when you see how many people follow her, you would know why. Sorry, I had to out you on that one. You know, her bio is just next level. And maybe I can just do it some justice. She comes to us with over 30 years of experience developing and managing social policies and programs in very diverse environments worldwide. You're driven by a passion to make a meaningful contribution to sustainable development and also social change. Your work has spanned every sector, it feels like, including the not-for-profit, which I know you don't like that word, but you'll probably talk about that, the government, the UN, and also the private sector. Lindsay was based in Geneva, also acting as Secretary General of CARE International. She's held executive roles at the International Olympic Committee, the Special Olympics Canada, and also the Right to Play. And earlier in her career, she spent close to a decade working for the Government of Canada. And I actually believe you liked it there. Like, that seems resounding that you really loved that. So well done. Lindsay has developed a wide breadth of knowledge, acquiring subject matter expertise in global health, early child and youth development, education, gender equality, food security, human rights, and disability. But you know, what rang true for me, and we talked about this briefly, is her strong interest in people. Just her strong interest in people and her desire to deepen her understanding of actually the common threads that bind us as global citizens. So throughout her career, as you are today, you have been rewarded for your people-oriented, collaborative management skills. You were honored with the, it blows me away, Queen Elizabeth II Diamond Jubilee Medal, McGill's Distinguished Leader Award, and Waterstone's Canada's Most Admired Cultures Hall of Fame. And I'm sure that there is more to say, Lindsay, but we only have so much time, and I know that everybody wants to see you with Marsha on this stage. So I'm just going to end by just using a short quote from you. We often question our individual capacity to tackle global challenges. Yet I've seen the undeniable power of collective action as a force for change. Each one of us plays a critical role in creating such a world. What is so inspiring to me about this, Lindsay, is you believed you could change the world. You actually believed it. But the best thing about it is you did. You changed the world. So everyone, please join me in welcoming to the stage this year's Lifetime Achievement recipient, Lindsay Glasgow.
Can we get some tissues, please? Are you okay? You came prepared? How does that feel when you hear all of your accomplishments read back to you?
Makes me feel old. I honestly, I feel incredibly honored, just so honored to be here. And when I look around the room and I think of the people I've even just met this morning, and I listen to Shanze, I feel humbled too. I feel like this is a room full of powerful, influential people. And to be sitting here is a very special honor.
Do you think, yeah, that's me? Or do you think, is that me?
I feel a little bit of the imposter syndrome, which I spoke about with somebody this morning, and I said I think that's typical of we women. But I also feel like it's an award that's not just for me, but for all the people and the teams and the individuals and the communities that I've worked with over the years, because I certainly would not be here today if it wasn't for just incredible collaboration and individuals who I've had the opportunity to work with. So I share the award with all of them.
Let's start at the beginning of your career. You left a job in sports marketing for what I'm told is a volunteer opportunity for 2 years. You moved to South Africa. You lived in a small village. You were a high school teacher. You were in this mountain village without water or electricity. Why did you accept that opportunity, and how then did it shape the start of this career?
Great question. This is awkward because I feel like I need to look at you to answer the question, but I have my back to all these people.
And
so I'm
swivel
not sure
chairs
if I
can
should
be dangerous, but today they might come in handy.
I'm not really sure where I should be looking, so apologies for
There's lots of
having
monitors,
my back to people.
we're good.
But I sought out the experience in Lesotho. I was really wanting an adventure at that time in my life. I loved working for International Management Group, which is a sports marketing firm, as you said, but it just felt like something was missing. I wanted to expose myself to a different way of life, a different culture, something I didn't know anything about. So off I went. And as you said, it was a very remote setting in a country I'd never heard of. So when I was offered the job and they said you were off to Lesotho, I had to take out a map to figure out where it was. And for those of you who don't know where Lesotho is, it's a small country landlocked by South Africa. And the adventure was certainly an adventure. It was in a village, an hour and a half walking distance from the closest road. And there was nobody in the village that spoke a word of English except for the other teachers in the high school where I was working. And to collect water was it started as a 20-minute walk from the village. But no sooner had I arrived, I think I was 3 months into the job, one of the greatest droughts that Southern Africa has ever had hit our region. And so that 20-minute walk to get water turned into an hour and a half walk. And the villagers I knew started to lose their livelihoods, their sheep, their goats. All the community gardens died. And it was a really troubling time. Food insecurity hit the village. People were becoming malnourished. And my students stopped coming to school. And so I experienced for the first time what people globally experience right now, actually every day, but true food insecurity. I myself, I shouldn't say I experienced it, I witnessed it, because of course I was still able to feed myself with all the supplies I had. So yeah, I was in this community experiencing something very, very significant. And with the principal of the school, I was able to help put together some proposals for funding. And we actually got funding from the Canada Fund and the World Food Program, and we were able to put a school feeding program in place for our students. And that was a game changer, because it meant that children could continue to come to school, because if they could get a free meal, that in itself is an incentive to show up. And we were also able to get funding to put in a water tap in the school compound. And then within a number of months, we were able to convert the school from a day school to a boarding school. So over those years, oh, sorry, I see you want to ask me a question.
No, I was just going to say, so this teaching job turned into something much more. I mean, some people might have decided they should return home.
In fact, there were a number of other volunteers that did return home and said, I don't need this. But I was pretty determined to follow it through. And I'm not going to lie, I loved it. It was it was a picturesque, beautiful setting. The people in the community were lovely. And I loved the culture. So they were very, very happy days for me. But I think what I wanted to say in terms of how it impacted me is, even though I was a teacher and I was foreign to the community, I was there long enough to develop solid relationships and trust and work with the community to understand their needs. And I was able to help them just by the sheer fact that I was Canadian and I had this link to funding, and that I was able to fill out the application because my English was better than theirs. And so I facilitated a process. They identified their needs. They knew exactly how things had to transpire, and I was the conduit. And after that experience, I really felt inspired to make more of an impact. I thought, if I could do that as a teacher, you know, what more can happen? And of course, as a teacher, you influence individual lives, and you also see how that can affect others. It's a domino effect. So it inspired me to go back to school and do a master's in international development, and that was the start of this career.
Let's talk about how sports played a really pivotal role in your career journey. You have worked with the International Olympic Committee, Special Olympics. What have you learned from sports in terms of key strategies for managing diverse teams, international teams, and really creating collaboration?
I think everything I've learned around cross-cultural collaboration hasn't necessarily just come from sport. It's come from working for the UN, for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the government, all the different jobs I've done that have required working with different cultures have been quite consistent in terms of what's required. And I feel that, how do I put this? I think just really respecting what can come from working with diverse groups of people, and embracing that if you really get the best of, or if you can pull out the best in a diverse group, that you're more likely to succeed. And so I think through all the cross-cultural work I've done, it's just required an openness, a flexibility, a real desire to understand the cultures, to ask a lot of questions. You need to be a very strong, active listener if you want to succeed in any cross-cultural initiative. And always coming at the work with an assumption that there's a desire for everybody to do good. So when there is, we always have challenges with cross-cultural collaboration, and instead of sort of falling back to thinking about it in a negative way, it's always coming at it with, questioning, am I understanding this? What happened there? And being open to it. And so for me, it's just really about embracing the diversity and respecting it, but then looking for the commonalities. What are those things that bind us? What are what's the common ground that will pull us together and allow us to work together?
Could you give us an example of a particularly challenging experience with that?
Oh my gosh, I have years of I can't think of one right now specifically. Isn't that crazy? No, I mean, I think just really, I guess there are a lot of issues around language, where, you may have miscommunications because, English is not the first language for so many people I've had to work with. And so just misinterpretations around language in themselves can blow up to be much larger issues than they need to be. And so again, it's just seeking to clarify is the only really way to get out of the issue. And I know that's not specific, but I think
No,
there
it's
are
a good
always
example, though, and I-
communication and having
Yeah.
clear communications is just such an important piece of it.
Now, we heard in the introduction that you don't really like the term advocacy work. Is that true? Or have I got that one wrong?
I'm not sure.
Not for profit.
Oh,
I'm
not
getting
for
ahead of
profit,
myself.
yeah.
Well, we can talk about advocacy work right now. Is there a misconception around that?
I do think there are some misconceptions around advocacy. I think when we think of advocacy and successful advocacy, we're always thinking about the big, shiny goal, and did we reach it? And if we didn't succeed. And when I think of advocacy, and I'm looking over here because I've got two people that I've worked with doing a lot of advocacy work in the past. But when I think of advocacy and successful advocacy, I think of all of the tactics and strategies that go into it. And, that can be from raising awareness about the issue and, engaging the public and getting them out doing marches and protests or petitions. It can be, writing opinion pieces. But there's also, and that work in itself is shifting attitudes. And so even if you don't hit your final goal, but you've managed to, work on this public engagement, you can actually move the bar and have small wins along the way. And, the same goes for the partnerships and the relationships you're building when you're, getting into coalition work, or the communications work that you're involved in, and, shining the story on some, best practices, or it can be the research and the evidence. I mean, so much of advocacy is making a case and finding the data and the research and what works, what doesn't work. And so all of those different pieces, and there's so many other tactics, but they all are represent incremental change. So even if you don't hit your final policy change, you're probably contributing to change just through the sheer process. And one great example of this is this 4-year policy initiative that I worked on when I was at Right to Play, which is a Canadian-based not-for-profit that works for children. It uses education or play-based learning for childhood development. And we engaged 59 governments in dialogue on how to incorporate sport and physical activity into national policy agendas. One small example is, trying to encourage a government to make phys ed compulsory in primary school. We take it for granted here in Canada, but there's so many countries around the world that don't even have phys ed in school. So that's a very concrete example of a national policy that you can push. But I guess my point here is, over those 4 years, as we engaged these governments and we brought them together and we shared best practices and we did case studies, we actually saw change being triggered throughout, because bringing them together and creating that space for dialogue and putting the evidence base out there triggered the change even before the end of the 4 years, when we came up with 300 policy recommendations that we had developed jointly with them. So my message there is, it's the small wins we have to celebrate. We can't just think, and that's where the misconception is, we can beat ourselves up thinking, we didn't get there, but all those small wins are important aspects of change.
The journey, not just the destination.
Exactly.
Okay, so what's the thing with not-for-profit that...
I just think that starting with a negative terminology for a sector that has such a strong social impact doesn't do it service.
You want to rename it?
I would love to call it the social impact sector.
Brilliant, brilliant. So you have held several notable positions, a couple of which you've touched on. You were Secretary General of CARE International in Switzerland. You've had a lot of high-level responsibilities. This is a two-part question. How do you navigate your own stress, your own potential career burnout? And the second part to the question is, based on that, what do you think organizations can do better to help their employees, support their employees when they're going through something similar?
I'm looking around the room because I'm sure everyone, it's impossible to not be stressed. But the way I do manage my stress is mostly through focusing on health and wellness. So it's the formula of exercise, 8 hours sleep, good nutrition. I focus a lot on, doing this combination of strength training and yoga and cardio. But I spend a lot of time outdoors whenever I can. I'm out, in nature where I'm at, probably where I'm feeling most peaceful. I also focus a lot on just keeping connections with friends and family going. I think it's really important. I read once that the more networks you're associated with, the more your issues or challenges are put into perspective. And if you're, with the same, if you only have one network, you don't have the perspective to help you think in terms of where it sits on the level of other people's problems. So I think it's healthy to just continuously expose yourself to others. I have a very strong support group. Some of them are here with me here today. I've got an amazing board of directors, some wonderful friends. I have a personal coach that I turn to for advice. And then I focus on time management. Time management is always important to keep stress at bay. But I think the second part was you asked what could employers do. So I'm at an age where I don't have any young children and my parents have passed away, but what I see every day are parents really struggling with those duties. And I think women, of course, are disproportionately struggling with a lot of caregiving, whether it's children, elderly, even caring within the community. And I think that flexibility in the workplace is absolutely essential. I think we've seen in recent years just how helpful it is to provide flexibility to women in particular, and to men, actually, to both, because I think, if the flexibility is consistent across the workforce, then it allows men to also take on more caregiving roles. I also think that creating a culture of diversity, equity, and inclusion is really important. You don't want work to be a place that people want to run away from. Work should be a place where, I think it was said earlier, where you can go and be your authentic self. And so it means that it's creating an environment where, the workplace practices are equitable, but where there's transparent communication, there's a caring environment that focuses on wellness, puts people at the center, and allows them to feel comfortable coming to work, being themselves. I think a lot of stress comes to women in particular when they feel like they need to be somebody else. I know in my career, I was once very frustrated coming out of a meeting, and one of my colleagues turned to me and said, Lindsay, the only way you're going to get through this is if you behave like a man. And that was the day I just thought, I actually don't want to behave like somebody I'm not. It's probably time I leave this organization. And that didn't need to be the solution, leaving the organization. So I think we really want to create spaces where people can be themselves. And it comes from leadership. Leaders need to role model. I know for myself at Plan International Canada, I've done my best to demonstrate vulnerability, to be honest about my own challenges, and to be transparent. Because I think when the leader can demonstrate that they're really true to who they are, others will follow suit. And I strongly believe that that reduces a lot of stress.
Have you seen a lot of progress in your career? I read something about, there was one example, you were somewhere and there literally was not a chair for you. Like literally not a seat at the table. Have things gotten better?
I think they have. Of course, we have a ways to go. I mean, that was at the time a very male-dominated, I'm not going to lie, I was working at the International Olympic Committee. It was a very male-dominated setting. And now I work in the social impact space, and it attracts a different type of person. We've got very open-minded, passionate individuals who care deeply about social impact. So the environment I'm currently working in is quite different. So I think it depends on the sector you're in, to be honest. I think we've seen the research, things are improving, but they're still not where we want them to be.
So this conversation is going to take a bit of a sharp turn here.
Okay?
To talk about your experience in British Columbia. For those who did not read your bio, you survived an avalanche. You literally survived an avalanche. This was in March of 2002. You were in BC. Can you take us back to that moment and describe not only physically how you survived it, but emotionally and mentally as well?
Absolutely. So I know we don't have a long time, so I'm trying to figure it out. It's a long story, but the abridged version, and I'll try and keep it brief. To give context, I was on a backcountry ski touring trip with an outdoor adventure company, and I was with one of my best friends, and the group we were with, I think there were about 10 of us. There were 8 Japanese men, actually, and then my girlfriend and I, and 2 guides and a cook. And we were living in a cabin that was just at the base of a glacier and where the sort of end of the tree line came. And we would do day trips. So for those of you who have never done backcountry skiing, you put skins on the bottom of your ski to hike up, and then you take them off and you ski down. And so we had been doing day trips, and on the second day, at the end of the day, we split up as a group. My friend and I were with one guide. The others went back to the cabin. And as we were traversing up the hill, we got caught in a slab avalanche. All 3 of us were buried. So we weren't, it wasn't like the movies where you hear a big thunderous loud bang and look up and see the snow coming. I mean, we were literally, it was like being on a carpet that just slid. And we also were not at a resort, so there was nobody there to save us. It was just the 3 of us. So it was a miracle. I must have had one of my hands above my head, but I was fortunate enough to be able to dig myself out. It took a long time. It was probably a 20-minute to half an hour process because it was hard as rock. I mean, it was like concrete. I had to dig out a huge trench in order to even be able to bend over to take my skis off because I still had my skis on. And I then realized I was on my own, after lots of screaming and doing all those things you do. And so I knew that there was about a 20-minute window to be buried and to survive, and that I was past that window, but I was pretty determined to make the best of it. So I did have an avalanche transceiver, and my knapsack had a shovel and a probe, and I sort of stripped off my clothes, got everything out of my knapsack, started searching for my friend. And as I was sort of heading down the hill with my avalanche transceiver, I actually heard the voice of my guide. So it can't even tell you how that made me feel. But the 2 of us then proceeded with the search, and after quite a while, found my friend. She was the color of your suit and not conscious, but she had a pulse. And we all got out of there. There's many stages in between, and we can't be here all day, but we got out of there. And when I think back to the experience, it was the most horrifying experience in my life. And I did endure a fair number of physical injuries. We actually, if you can imagine, we stayed in the mountains and we skied for the rest of the week. They tell you if you fall off a horse, get back on. So we spent the next day resting and sort of hanging out. And then we thought, well, I guess we should ski again because we were in the middle of nowhere. And so we skied for the rest of the week. And it was only when I got back to Ottawa, when my alarm, went off to go to work, I actually couldn't move. My body just literally was in so much pain. So it took, a good week before everything set in. And then I went to the hospital and realized that I had lots of injuries and torn muscles. And so it's amazing what your survival instinct can do. So that experience turned out to be quite difficult for me. It turned out to be a year and a half of not being able to exercise and having to go to a lot of doctors, physio, massage, chiro, psychotherapy. Post-traumatic stress disorder set in after a few weeks, and I started having all sorts of issues. And I had to take, sorry, this is probably way long. I wasn't planning to tell this story, but...
we're all on the edge of our seats.
Yeah,
We're good.
I'm really sorry. So I had to take sick leave, and that was hugely difficult for me because at the time, and I think even now, there was stigma attached to it. And I thought I was so, so strong, I shouldn't need to take sick leave, but I did. And then, I learned so much about myself, but about others. And I realized people have struggles that you don't see. And it was a new reality for me. It really was. This idea of invisible disabilities and what people have to live with that you just don't see. So I think it gave me a newfound empathy for others and an understanding that you just never know what's going on in people's lives. And you need to be really empathetic and understanding and, seek to understand in order to work with people.
And did someone say to you, oh, it must have been quite nice to take a year-and-a-half long vacation or something to that effect?
I did. I didn't take that much time off, but I did take the summer off. I think it was about 3 months, and it was a lovely, beautiful summer. So I did have somebody say, oh, must be nice to have the summer off. And it was just this perception because they couldn't see what was going. They couldn't see that I was having nightmares every night, and my body was covered in a rash, and I was having panic attacks, and they couldn't see that. So when I was taking the summer off, and I was told by the doctors, you just need to relax, enjoy life, and not think about anything other than yourself and your health. And so, of course, I was out playing tennis, and I was doing what I was told to do. And so the perception probably wasn't great, but
as such a high-achieving person, was it hard to give yourself that permission to take that break?
Oh, yeah. It was very difficult. It was very, very difficult. And I remember thinking, and I wasn't even that senior in a senior position. I think I was a manager, and I remember thinking like, oh, they can't survive without me. And my doctor told me a horrendous story, and I won't go into the details, but it was enough for me to realize, like, okay, yeah, I guess they can survive without me. And I always think back to that moment. We all think we're not replaceable, but we're all very replaceable.
And you can say you literally survived an avalanche.
I can say I survived an avalanche. Absolutely.
So no matter what comes your way, do you feel now that you are equipped to handle it based on that experience in 2002?
It definitely gives me a sense of if I could do that, I can do that. If when I have challenges in front of me, I often tell myself, I went through something pretty significant. If I could deal with that, I can deal with this. So it gives me a sense of inner strength for sure. And it allows me to see most challenges as opportunities and to not let them knock me down. It's definitely given me a half glass full attitude about life, and not to be hokey, but you really start to appreciate life. I mean, you know that you can lose it so quickly, so you have to enjoy it while you're here.
So my final question this afternoon then, on reflecting on your personal experience, the personal challenges that you have overcome and that you have faced, have you redefined what influence means? How do you look at influence for yourself?
You know, Shanze, I can really relate to what she said. Like she said. But you know, I think that for me, it's about taking action and using your voice. And what I've learned in my career is that no matter what your position, and this is, I believe, also what you said, you don't need the title and you don't need the status. You mentioned age, but to me, we really all have the opportunity to have an impact. And it's about taking action and deciding that you want to make an impact. And then I would say, for those of us who are in positions with a platform, we really need to, we're responsible for using our positions. And I think we're also responsible for sharing our platforms for those that don't have the opportunity to necessarily be heard. And so one of the things I spent a lot of time on at Plan is actually giving the platform or sharing the platform with youth, girls in particular, who can tell their stories, because I think Shanze just demonstrated that, you know, there are a lot of young women out there that just have incredible potential. They know what the issues are, they have the solutions, and if we can share the platform with them to express their ideas, the world will be a better place, and they will be the women of influence in the future.
Okay, I lied. One more question.
Okay.
So Shanze is 16.
Yep.
When you look back to your 16-year-old self, would she look at the woman you are sitting on this stage right now and think, this is who I wanted to be?
I almost feel like I need to ask you, can you repeat that question?
Okay, pretend for a moment you're 16.
I'm trying to remember where I was at 16, yep.
Did you think that you would be this accomplished person receiving this award among all of the other incredible accomplishments in your life?
Absolutely not. No. Yeah.
Really?
But I do think at 16 I was ambitious.
Yeah.
And, you know, when I think back, I was already very active and doing a lot of work within the community. And, you know, even at university, I was very, very active. And I always wanted to make an impact. I don't think I knew how I would do it and what that would look like, but I always knew that I wanted to make an impact, especially with respect to social change, for sure.
I think the lesson then is anything is possible.
Absolutely, anything is possible, for sure.
Thank you so much for taking
Thank
the time
you.
to speak with us. Don't run away. Okay, we're now going to encourage everyone to connect. We're going to eat, and then we're going to be back with the 2024 Top 25 Women of Influence recipients presentation. All right, welcome back, everybody. I hope that you have enjoyed your lunch. As we begin the final portion of the program, please enjoy the gluten-free vegan dessert in front of you. It's delicious. Now for our video presentation. This year's Top 25 Women of Influence Awards received an overwhelming response with hundreds and hundreds of nominations. This is a testament to the growing impact of women leaders and their contributions across various sectors. We are delighted to showcase the achievements of this year's honorees in this special video presentation. Enjoy.
The Top 25 Women of Influence Awards celebrate the achievements of role models and spotlight outstanding women leaders who have catalyzed significant change over the past year. Lindsay Glasgow is a passionate advocate who centers some of the most vulnerable populations in her work. As the current president and CEO of Plan International Canada, her work is a powerful example of how dedication and visionary leadership can create significant positive changes for people and communities worldwide. Raisa Amani is a social activist and public speaker known for the impactful work she does with youth engagement in health spaces. She is the executive director of the Young Canadians Roundtable on Health and uses her personal experience with health inequity to advocate for the improved healthcare support for Canada's youth and children. Dr. Anna Banerjee is a pioneer in refugee health and the founder of the North American Refugee Health Conference in Canada. As a physician, educator, and researcher, she applies a human rights framework to inform her advocacy, with a focus on refugee and Indigenous populations. She has been working with refugee children for most of her career and established the Costi Pediatric Clinic. Jennifer Bishop is a prominent lawyer and former elite athlete who is passionate about advancing gender equity in sports. She is a partner at Aird & Burles LLP and is the chair of the Doug Philpott Inter-City Children's Tennis Federation, the only tennis charity in Canada dedicated exclusively to children in priority needs neighborhoods, serving over 8,500 participants each year. Bernice Carnegie is the co-founder and president of the Carnegie Initiative. Through her work with the organization, she continues to drive her father Herb Carnegie's contribution to hockey and Canadian history forward. As an international speaker and author, Bernice has a remarkable talent for storytelling, illuminating the struggles and triumphs of her ancestral journey, igniting a flame of understanding and the importance of inclusion and appreciation for diverse histories and experiences. Yvonne Chan is an occupational healthcare industry expert and the founder and CEO of Santé Circle Health. After facing her own challenges in advocating for herself following a serious accident, she has turned her experience into a mission. Yvonne focuses on guiding others through their recovery journey, merging her healthcare expertise with a passion for empowering individuals with disabilities. Lee Allison Clark is the National Manager of Mental Health for Game Plan, a total athlete wellness program for Canada's 1,800 Olympic and Paralympic athletes and other nationally carded athletes. Her work focuses on mental health, mental illness, and mental performance. Lee is passionate about increasing the health status of Indigenous peoples. Her advocacy efforts have amplified the importance of decolonized, trauma-informed, gender-based, and community-informed healthcare. Gabby Dabrowski is a top-ranked tennis player, currently ranked 5th in women's doubles on the Women's Tennis Association Tour, and part of the first Canadian duo to win a Grand Slam in women's doubles at the US Open. She uses her platform to work with high-impact charities that significantly impact those in need around the world. Simran Dhillon is the CEO and co-founder of Fentagon, a medical technology company whose mission is to reduce street-level overdoses amid the opioid epidemic and spearhead innovation in the field of harm reduction. Alongside her crucial work, she passionately advocates for a shift in how we perceive and discuss addiction, aiming to transform the narrative into one of understanding and support. Angela Diano is the Executive Director of Alpha One Canada Inc., a national not-for-profit organization that advocates on behalf of Canadians affected by alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency, a genetic condition that can cause lung and liver damage. After 6 years of raising awareness about this disease, Angela helped get Alpha-1 category approved by provincial and territorial governments, guaranteeing equitable access to treatment for patients. Christiana Haji is a dementia advocate and has owned and operated Alexis Lodge retirement residences for over 25 years. With a focus on person-centered care, her organization is dedicated to making a meaningful difference in the lives of those affected by Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia. She is deeply committed to challenging and eliminating the stigma associated with dementia and mental illness. Dr. Pamela Farrell is the founder and executive director of the Grow Community Food Literacy Centre, Canada's first community food literacy centre. Her work is transformative, aiming to dismantle systems of power perpetuating inequality. She focuses on lifting the voices of historically marginalized communities and tackling the systemic obstacles that disproportionately impact single, women-led households, especially those grappling with food insecurity. Jennifer Flanagan is a national leader and a force in changing the face of science, engineering, and technology in Canada. As the co-founder of Actua, her work engages 375,000 youth annually, helping to redefine the future of STEM education and the science and technology workforce by empowering young minds across Canada to reach their full potential. Tori Ford is an outspoken patient advocate, feminist researcher, and the founder of Medical Her Story. She's completing a doctorate of philosophy in primary health care at the University of Oxford. At the helm of her international award-winning nonprofit, Tori is on a mission to eliminate sexism, shame, and stigma from health experiences. Vanessa Genier is the CEO and founder of Quilts for Survivors, a grassroots initiative that honors survivors of Indian residential schools, Indian day schools, the 60s scoop, and other traumas suffered by Indigenous peoples. Under Vanessa's leadership, she and her team have presented over 4,500 quilts to survivors across Canada in a spirit of healing, truth, and reconciliation. Meseret Haley-Jesus is a multi-award-winning thought leader, social entrepreneur, and innovator who works on economic and health equity transformations through evidence, policy influencing, and system change. Advocating for Bill 41, Meseret is the first Canadian who called for national and international response to economic justice policies. Nikisa Kumal Singh is the founder of Hoop Queens, a nonprofit organization that created Canada's first ever paid league for women's basketball. She is on a mission to change the narrative of women in sport and inspire women everywhere to confidently create their own lanes. Dr. Victoria Lee is the president and CEO of Fraser Health, one of the largest health service delivery systems in Canada. Before joining Fraser Health, Dr. Lee collaborated with national and international organizations such as the United Nations Development Programme and the World Bank in areas of development, human rights, health, and climate. She bridges cultural divides to foster an environment of innovation, inclusivity, and impact. Dr. Adi Mashtan is the founder and director of the Cybersecurity Research Lab at Toronto Metropolitan University and is a Canada Research Chair. Recognized as a leading expert in cryptography, blockchain technology, information security, and privacy in the cybersecurity industry, Dr. Mashtan pays it forward by being an advocate and champion for women in STEM. Geetha Murthy is a dedicated champion for positive change and is the founder of the South Asian Autism Awareness Centre, which supports over 800 families from diverse backgrounds across 3 facilities in Scarborough, Ontario. Through the centre, Geetha creates empowering job opportunities and strives to eradicate the stigma surrounding autism. Orlan Panay is the co-founder and CEO of Microhabitat, an urban farming company that optimizes urban spaces through the production of fresh food. With more than 250 farms across North America, Orlan and her team deploy projects with strong environmental, social, and economic impacts in collaboration with businesses, schools, and institutions. She is creating an impactful green movement that supports local communities, economies, and the environment. Lynn Poslins is at the forefront of advancing women's brain health, targeting the needs of women, caregivers, and families. As the founder, president, and CEO of Women's Brain Health Initiative, her charity raises awareness about the inequity in women's brain aging research, funding, and the creation of evidence-informed preventative health education programs for a greater understanding by the public of the best ways to prolong their cognitive vitality. Martine Roy is deeply committed to using her experience and position to bridge the gap between the 2S LGBTQ+ community and the workplace. As an active community member, she uses her voice to illuminate the realities that members of this community face and works to create an environment that makes people feel seen and valued. Tina Singh is the founder and CEO of Bold Helmets. She revolutionized safety gear by creating the first certified multi-sport helmet for Sikh children who maintain their hair. Drawing on her background as an occupational therapist specializing in head and brain injuries, Tina recognized the need for a practical helmet solution. Determined, she designed a product that finally met the needs of her community. Dr. Ingrid Waldron is an award-winning professor and researcher whose work addresses the health and mental health impacts of social inequalities and discrimination in Black, Indigenous, and other racialized communities. Raising awareness around climate change and environmental racism, Dr. Waldron has played an instrumental role in co-developing the first Environmental Racism Private Members Bill for Nova Scotia, Bill 111. Zoe Williams is a prominent voice in the world of aviation and is an active volunteer with a focus on underserved communities and racialized groups. Throughout her career, Zoe has been an airport ramp worker, college flight instructor and lecturer, remote northern pilot, and airline pilot. She is now a first officer on a Boeing 777 with Air Canada and is the first Black woman pilot at the airline, breaking barriers and reinforcing the importance of representation. Influence for us is measured by impact. Congratulations to the 2024 Top 25 Women of Influence recipients, and thank you for the impact you are making.
Told you it was going to be stellar. Just amazing. We want to acknowledge and honor our 2024 Top 25 Women of Influence Award recipients. On behalf of Women of Influence Plus and all of those present today, we request that the honorees who are in this room to kindly stand up as we take a moment to recognize your outstanding contributions and your work. It's truly inspiring, and we thank you for the positive impact that you have made. Bravo. What an inspiring and beautiful afternoon. To close out the program today, we have one final speaker, so please turn your attention to the screens for a brief message from our sponsor, TD.
I knew at a young age I wanted to get into fashion. In the beginning, I felt like nobody took me seriously. But I found that with TD and meeting Elisa, I felt like she understood my brand and vision and gave me the advice I actually needed. TD listened to my story, understood my business, and because of that, I really felt seen.
It's important for women to inspire other women and for us to see ourselves represented in different places in the industry so we all feel motivated to try.
I now want to welcome Julie Dimitri to the stage. She's the National Manager for Women in Enterprise at TD. She will be introducing our final speaker today. Julie, whose professional experience spans from business development, leading sales team, and startup operations, 12 years of experience, has been in sales, offering human resources and talent management services to small and mid-sized organizations. Since joining the financial industry, she has been instrumental in empowering forces to elevate their overall practices and continues to be known for her coaching skills and her drive for results. Julie, welcome to the stage. There you are.
right. Good afternoon. Bonjour tout le monde. I am so proud to be here today and be surrounded by all these inspiring women. Congratulations, everyone. So I'm the National Manager Women in Enterprise, and TD continues to be committed to creating an inclusive community where everyone has access to the different resources, the different tools, to really feel confident in what their future holds. And one of these initiatives is what you just saw at Women in Enterprise, the investment that the bank is doing. I have the privilege of leading a team across the country of regional managers, and they work directly with women entrepreneurs and women-led organizations to really help them grow and succeed in their business. And we also have almost 300 We Bankers. And what does a We Banker mean? It's actually a banker who decided to get accredited, to work with women, to remove barriers, to challenge stereotype. And clients who work with We Bankers say that they often roll up their sleeves, they coach, they guide. It's a lot more than just a funding, right? They really support them through their different journeys. Often they say they're like their #1 cheerleader. And so I'm excited to share today our next speaker. I heard some of the videos that she posted online, and something stood out to me. She said, you know, sometimes it's hard to learning how to learn when you're not in school anymore. And we see this a lot with the women that we support because everybody's at a different stage of their journey. So let me introduce to you our next speaker. Brooke Joseph is an alumni of the Knowledge Society and a current computer science major at Waterloo. She specialized in federated learning and data privacy. Brooke's ambitious and impactful projects span multiple focus areas and discipline. Her most notable and recent project explores using brain-computer interface and AI for bipolar disorders diagnosis. Brooke loves math, has pioneered projects with TensorFlow federated, Raspberry Pi simulations, and SNNS for semiconductor inspection, and is currently working with LLMS, building a platform bridging the gaps in knowledge of students interested in complex topics. Brooke is an educated content creator. She's a public speaker and a role model for women and girls in STEM. Please join me in inviting Brooke to the stage.
Hello? Okay. So first of all, thank you so much for the introduction. So growing up, I didn't have a lot of representation or examples of people that looked like me in STEM. And because of that, I felt like I wasn't really qualified to be working on very daunting, complex, technical problems. And I didn't really believe in myself. And that changed when I had a mentor named Mr. White, who was my math teacher. And he saw potential in me. And because of that, I started to really believe in myself. Hi, my name is Brooke Joseph, as was mentioned, and I'm a hacker, a builder, and most importantly, a nerd. And I love, currently I'm working on building knowledge graphs to help better empower Gen Zs to work on very complicated technical problems like climate change and data privacy from first principles. I realize I don't have the clicker, sorry. I used to believe that success was very linear. You know the story, make lots of money, work for a big tech company, and then you'd be successful. But through my experiences, I realized that this isn't really the case, and that success and influence is so much more than that. And so when I started to stop disqualifying myself from these very technical problems and started facing things in building, I realized that I can accomplish a lot more than I thought. And so I built a few different things. One thing that I did was I worked with BCIs to look at preventing the misdiagnosis of bipolar disorder. And then I worked with someone at MIT to look at different ways to better train AI models that protects the data that is being used to actually train these models. And then I did this in a different way with someone at Google using differential privacy. And so, as I mentioned, when I was working with differential privacy, I had a mentor at Google who essentially gave me a topic. And then I would do a bunch of research, and I'd feel amazing about it, and I'd go back to him, and I'd be like, this is everything I learned. And then I immediately realized that I knew nothing after a couple questions in. And this process would happen over and over and over again. He'd give me a topic, I'd do a lot of learning, I realized he knew nothing. And this really circled back to a lack of foundation of the fundamental topics. And in the case for differential privacy, that was like statistics. And I realized that this was a flaw with the educational system. Currently, Gen Z are incentivized and excited by very moonshot problem spaces, like climate change and data privacy, for example. But our education system is outdated. It takes years to acquire knowledge from a first principles perspective to actually make meaningful contributions into these spaces. So I got thinking, how can I change this? So this is my co-founder on the side here, and we're thinking, how can we make an impact and better empower people so that they can actually work on these problems and understand things, not just from a higher level point of view, but actually from the building blocks. So this is what we created. So essentially, you just enter in a topic and your skill level, and it puts together a whole course for you that will make sense from where you're at now. So it filters a bunch of YouTube videos, articles, and papers. So you have a bunch of videos here, and then YouTube videos that will lead you to the most relevant parts of those papers, and also articles. And then this here is the most exciting part. It essentially parses through a bunch of these different documents. So looking at video transcripts and also articles and papers, as I mentioned, and it finds the most common themes among all of them and graphs the connections between all these different topics. So that you can, when you go down rabbit holes, you can see how everything connects back to the overarching topic and understand things from a first principles perspective. And so after building this, and after building many different things, I realized that influence isn't so linear as I thought before. It isn't just making a lot of money and being super powerful and famous or whatever. I realized that influence and success is being able to work on things that really fulfill you and that you are excited by. And I'm so happy that I'm able to do this now. Something I realized as I get older is that I also want to be that influence of a figure of the woman in STEM that I never had when I was growing up. Thank you.
Brooke, you're awesome. Thank you for that. It is wonderful to hear what the next generation of leaders is working on and how they're going to be changing the world. Thank you, everyone, for coming today and celebrating the remarkable achievements of these incredible women. It has been such a wonderful afternoon, and again, I'm so honored to be able to be here and share it all with you. I want to once again take the opportunity to thank the sponsors, Iive Financial Group, TD, and Dean Davidson for making this event possible. Please be sure to take your gifts at your table. One of you, will leave it up to you to decide who will take the flowers home. The arrangements are beautiful. They're from Bliss Events. Again, thank you, everybody, for attending today. We hope you leave here feeling inspired, and we look forward to seeing you again next year. Thanks, everyone.